So I want to thank all our speakers here tonight. We have five great souls here speaking, and they'll be speaking on a variety of topics for about 10 minutes. And we also want to especially thank our guest ministers, nice family Ananta and Maria. They're here. They'll give us some feedback. So we'll have our speakers come up one by one. I'll introduce them. You know the drill by now, probably. Thank you also to all our viewers online who are here. And at the end, we'll have them come up. We'll give them a blessing. They'll sit down. And then we'll have Ananta and Maria come up and share a few things, anything they're inspired by, or any kinds of feedback they want to give. And before I turn it over to the speakers, I want to share a couple things. Kalidas, at the last Joy Masters, at the very end of the meeting, he came and told me, he said, you know, when you're so full of inspiration, you just have ideas and ideas and ideas, and you don't know where to pick from or what to choose, you're just going to go with the flow. And he said, but I forgot to say the one thing that I really wanted to say, the whole thing, the one thing that inspired his entire talk on listening. And so he told me it, and I was so inspired by that quote that I asked if I could share it. And he said, yeah, please do it. And so the quote is, someone once asked Master, what is Rajarsi's secret to spiritual success? And Master's simple reply was, he knew how to listen. And it's so simple, and yet so profound. Listening, in some respects, is the spiritual path. It's in the sense of attunement. Attunement is really a process of ever deepening listening to our within. We listen to audible things, to the birds, to noises, traffic, all these things. But learning to listen to that calmness within ourselves, that is attunement. That's how we're trying to find out what do we need to be doing, how do we react and act in these moment-to-moment daily situations, daily life. And I had an experience that was fun, and very recently, I just thought I'd share it. It was I was going into town with, I was helping Neil and Terry bring a piano in from, they'd bought one online, they were bringing it in, and they needed help getting it from wherever they bought it in town. So myself and Brandon and Ray were volunteered to help, and we were driving along about 40 minutes down the road. We were making good progress, and we started following this red car, this truck, and as we were following them, but for a couple minutes, probably 5 minutes or so, we started getting into this rapt conversation about Chariots of Fire, the movie Chariots of Fire. They came up because it's playing at the men's ashram this Friday. So no offense to the women, but men, you're all welcome to come. Chariots of Fire is a movie about running. And of course, if you know Brandon, he likes to dabble in running. I don't know if you know Brandon, but he runs like 50 miles as like a warm-up. Literally. And so he was so enthusiastic about this movie. He was going on and on and on. He had some coffee in him too. And I was thrilled. I was like, this is going to be a great movie. And we had just been talking probably for about 10 minutes about Chariots of Fire. And then he stopped and looked back at the red truck we were following. He said, is that Neil's car? And Ray and I were like, it looks just like it. It's got to be Neil's car. He said, but I don't remember that new license plate. And so we pull up right behind him. We just turn off the off-ramp, and Brandon goes, that's not them. There's no one in the passenger seat. And then he said, oh. And then he looks at the other guy and he said, that's definitely not Neil. That guy's bald. So we're like, what do we do? We just turned off. We have a cell phone, but we didn't think to get their number. So we were just like, all right, let's calm down. Let's figure out this, because right now we have no idea how we're going to find them. I have like 30 numbers in my phone, and there's probably 3 people from Ananda, because no one has a cell phone, and they do, they don't use it. So I was like, okay, let's figure out how are we going to find them. So we started planning and said, okay, let's just breathe. This is in Divine Mother's hands. We'll figure it out. And of course, we didn't figure it out. We just pulled off, and of course, Terry and Neil saw us. They saw us following him, and they were actually telling us later when we actually caught up with them and met them at the person's house where we picked up the piano. They said, yeah, we saw you. And we're like, no, don't follow them. And Neil was like, oh, don't turn there, don't turn. Oh, they turned there. They gave us the play-by-play. It was just a very small example of a very profound lesson of paying attention and really listening, because in the moment, there's so many things happening. And we can get distracted in our own thoughts, self-preoccupation, the shiny, glittering things that are happening over there, someone else's conversation, and you stop, you blink for a moment, and something traumatic happens, something major happens, life-changing. So it was a really important lesson. I felt it was, wow, that's really, pay attention. And listening is the art of paying attention and being in tune. So with that being said, I'd like to introduce our first speaker, Radhika. And she's been at the village for nearly 3 years, 2.5 years. She works and serves at online Ananda Web Services, and her favorite, one of the most inspiring quotes for her is from the Bhagavad Gita. He who beholds me everywhere, and who beholds everything in me, never loses sight of me, nor do I lose sight of him. That yogi rests forever centered in me, whatever his outward way of living, sees me in the heart of all beings. Let's welcome Radhika.
So I'm going to give a talk about giving a talk. It just kind of came to me. But first I wanted to mention something that Savitri and I and some of us talked about this afternoon. Just when you're giving, I guess most of us don't give Sunday services. When you're giving a talk, try not to say Swamiji, Master, or AY, because they're sort of in-house terms. So like for Swamiji you can say Kriyananda, and for Master you can say Yogananda, So just wanted to mention that it's kind of a habit that we should try to get into. So, so I chose this talk because I just thought it'd be really helpful for us all to keep hearing these. Like the more we hear this kind of stuff, like advice about how to give talks, the more we can kind of ingrain it, and especially teaching it. So it'll probably help me too. And so I want to talk first about just preparing for it. Just it's something that Savitri said, because I got most of my information from her leadership class. And I haven't had a lot of experience. I've given some workshops and things like for the lab and stuff. But just writing down like whatever comes to mind first without studying it. And I actually did this for this talk. And I was really surprised. It helped a lot. Because at first I just thought, I don't really know anything about giving a talk. But the more I wrote stuff down, the more I started thinking of it and getting in tune with it. And it really helped me to just sort of think of it on my own terms rather than just repeating what someone else said. And then after that, then you can gather all your materials and study stuff and just take tons of notes. And I think just finding as much as you can on any subject and reading it is really helpful. Because, it sort of pays off if you show like you really understand it, even if you're only talking about a few things. So then coming up, with an outline, and writing, putting everything in order, how you're going to talk about it, like the main points and little stories and jokes and stuff like that. And then something that Diksha actually said that I thought was really great at our little mini MTT thing was writing down how long you're going to spend on each section. I guess she had to do that for Sierra College when she was giving classes there. To make sure she got to everything. And that seemed like a really good idea, so you can kind of stay on track every time. And then something that I just personally like to do is have backup material, like have sort of extra things at the end to sort of add on if you have time, just so you don't run out of things to say. And it's kind of just, I've never actually used them before, but it's kind of security. It makes me feel less nervous about just sort of standing there. And depending on what kind of class it is, having handouts or PowerPoints or some kind of fun, interactive thing, just something to sort of spice it up. And, obviously rehearsing the talk, it's probably obvious, but I just noticed that the first time I tried to rehearse this talk at home, it was just really awkward, and I had to keep pausing, and I was just really uncomfortable, and nobody even was even watching me. And I just felt really nervous, so I think rehearsing really helps a lot. Oh yeah, and seeing how long it takes is a big thing, because the first time I gave this talk, I just rushed through the whole end, because I didn't have enough time. And so that's important, rehearsing, just to time it, and to figure out how you want to say everything. So some things on the day of the talk that you could do to prepare yourself. I think everyone's probably heard the story of like how Master said to take a warm bath. And so the guy took the really long, hot bath, and it was the what yoga can do for you thing at SRF. And the guy came out like a noodle, and he was like bright red. And just sort of stood there and talked for like 5 minutes, and then couldn't really think of anything else. And then that other guy who was like, like clutching the chairs, and it was kind of, I guess he was like spastic or something, and he couldn't really walk. And not that that was his fault for taking a bath, but it just kind of piled up. If it was just that, it probably wouldn't. Anyway, so taking a bath can help. That's all just to say, bath can help. Energizing was something I found. I can't remember where I saw that. It might have been something Swami said, or but energizing can help you to not be nervous before you talk. And I did energize, and I think it helped, especially the like beginning part, like just the breathing really helped a lot. And also just like, this is something I sort of made up, but it works for me. Practicing an affirmation before the talk, just getting yourself like pumped up and like, I can do this, or whatever inspires you. I just found that to be just convincing yourself, just saying it over and over again, just mentally convincing yourself that you're going to do really good, I think is helpful. And also, just not eating a lot before you talk, I think is a really big thing. I sort of learned that the hard way at the Christmas concert. I didn't really eat a lot. I just didn't really think about it, I guess because I was nervous. I wasn't really paying attention. I didn't get like too much food, like a normal meal, for dinner at the EL. So we had already arrived and rehearsed and everything, and then I ate food. And it was immediately before the concert. As soon as we were done, we just ran in. And then I actually felt fine while I was doing everything, and then after that solo that I had to do, I went and sat down, and my stomach just hurt so bad, and I started to feel nauseous, and it was just really, so just make sure you don't eat too much, just a really small amount, and you can eat later. And dressing, nice, but not really formal or too like flashy, or don't wear anything too interesting. Like when people would think of it as like they'll stare at it and want it. I was thinking of Savitri's story in the leadership class where she wore really interesting earrings, and somebody came up afterwards and said that they didn't hear anything she said because they just really wanted those earrings. I was wondering where she got them the whole time. And so just dressing like simply and nice. So I decided not to wear earrings. I was thinking about it. And just, this is sort of obvious, but, meditating and praying beforehand, and just saying, what people need to hear, rather than just thinking like, I'm going to tell them this, I'm going to tell them that, Instead, it's just like, this is what they really need to hear, and just sort of letting it flow, because you don't necessarily know what they need to hear, but Master knows. And so, I just said Master, but it's all in other people. So I just think it's more about sharing them. So just praying that you'll share what they need to hear. And if you have time too, and depending on where it is, I don't need to set up this place, but generally setting up things nicely, putting a little altar and some candles. I used to go to Taria's meditation groups in Grass Valley, and they just quickly assemble a table and put up candles, and it really made a difference. And doing some music beforehand, and don't meditate. I forgot to say this. Don't meditate while they're coming in, because it's not really that magnetic. That's something that Diksha mentioned in her MPT is if you're just like sitting there with your eyes closed and not talking to them while they come in, it's not that inviting. So just greeting them. And what else? Let go of attachments. The most important one. After you've done all that stuff, just let it go. It's just going to go how it's going to go, and it's not the end of the world if you don't do everything right. I've heard that people actually start to feel sympathy for you if you publicly embarrass yourself. So if you do something like stupid, they might actually like you more after. So it's not such a bad thing, actually. And when you're actually giving the talk, speaking clearly and loudly, pronouncing. I know sometimes I'll notice when I'm just talking to someone, I won't even be nervous. I'll start talking really fast and I'll get really excited and all my words will kind of run together. And so talking clearly and making sure you pronounce things. And also, I think I heard this sometime in the leadership class. But just varying your speech and just keeping it, but remember to speak from your heart and it's about sharing your vibration with your audience and sharing Master's love. It's not about talking to them. I mean, I never remember what happens after Sunday service, really, but I remember the feeling of it. So, thank you.
Thank you, Radhika, for that humorous and instructive talk. There's water here for our speakers, if anyone. It's a communal class. We're all family. So I hope our speakers all took their bath and fasted. Our next we have high expectations now. So our next speaker is Premi. She's been in the village for almost 2 years. She's a single parent. She teaches 1st, 2nd, and 3rd grade at the Living Wisdom School. And one quote that inspires her is, "Seek ye first the kingdom of God." So.
Hello everybody. Hi friends. It's really nice to see you and to be here. It's actually amazing because I can't believe I'm standing in this room talking to all of you. The place where Swami Ananda built this home and where so many great souls have passed many hours in meditation and satsang. So I just want to say thank you all. And Radhika, thank you so much because I can definitely check off that I took a bath. I'm energized. And what else did I do? I got that 5 minutes of meditation in, but my life's pretty busy because I'm a teacher and I've got kids, and so I get my meditation in when I can, and sometimes I just I really have to make the presence of God be as often as I can during the day. And what I wanted to talk to you guys about tonight is something that's close to me, so hopefully it's easy, which is being a teacher and learning about EFL and just my experiences. So when I come into class in the mornings, I've got a class of 7- and 8-year-old boys, first of all. So they are just in the moment. And the greatest thing about being in that class is that I get to be in the moment with them all day long. And I get to practice the presence of God. And I get to see like the big picture of what we're supposed to be doing in EFL. But also I get to be a telescope or a microscope and go in really, really close and see a soul and ask Divine Mother, ask Master to help me help the soul, to work through me. What do I need to do for this person? What needs to happen? And I get to practice it. Sometimes I feel at the end of the day, wow, I wonder what happened there. That didn't go so well. Sometimes I come off just high as a kite, just flying. So when I come into class in the morning, and I'm pretending all of you are my students right now. They come in with who knows what happened in the car and what happened before school and what they're thinking about, and so we center ourselves with not energization exercises, but the super conscious living exercises. And so if you guys can stand up with me, and we're not going to do them all because I don't want you to hit yourselves or each other, but I want you to just pretend that you are 7, you are 8. Really just go there, you know, and see yourself, and we're just going to start off. I'm awake and ready, I'm awake and ready, I'm awake and ready, I'm awake and ready. I am positive, energetic, enthusiastic. I am positive, energetic, enthusiastic. I'm going to skip ahead. I am master of my body, I am master of my body, I am master of myself. One more time. I am master of my body, I am master of myself. And you can have a seat. Thank you. Thanks for indulging me. Sometimes then we'll sit, we'll kind of whatever needs to happen, I'll gauge the group. And then sometimes we'll sing a song. And so this week I thought, I don't sing this song necessarily in class. We usually do something more like the level of 7 and 8-year-olds. But I was listening to this song this week and I thought I have to sing it for you guys because I wanted to, first of all, see if I could actually sing it in front of you. And I'm not going to sing the whole thing. I'm just going to sing a line. And the words are, it's from Swami Ananda. The words are, the secret of laughter lies in laughing, not in the search for joy. It's a swallow winging on the wind. It's innocence in a boy. So I'm going to try. The secret of laughter lies in the laughing, not in the search for joy. It's a swallow winging on the wing. It's innocence in a boy. Joy will come to anyone whose heart has learned to fly. So, and that song really had a lot of meaning to me. First of all, it's got the word boy in it, and I've got boys, and innocence, and laughter. You know, we're practicing, we're doing it. We're not, trying to bring it to us artificially. And that's exactly how I feel when I teach. And it's a beautiful experience for me in my life. And so oftentimes, well, I guess the biggest lesson that I've learned so far this year is how important education for life is. It's the wave of the future. There's so many souls out there that really are yearning for this. And they're coming. And I feel that very strongly. When I think about the education that I had when I grew up, and probably many of you, and it kind of just put a blanket over whatever your emotions were, what you were going through, whatever your state of your soul's evolution was. It was not part of school. It was purely academic. And the great thing about EFL is that we are taking that aspect and making it important. And so in our school at Ananda Village, we have children whose parents are disciples of Yogananda, and we have children whose parents are disciples of other great gurus. And we have children whose parents are not disciples of anyone, but they just like our school. And they see the benefit that it has for their children. And I really feel so strongly that all of those children were sent here by Master, and that there's some reason that they're here, and that we have a responsibility to each soul. And in that is the beauty of a spiritual path. I'll give you a little example of another thing I learned. I guess lately I've learned that intuition is a really big part of teaching. I remember when I first came to Ananda Village, I just had no idea how to do intuition. I was like, what is this? And how does it work? And how can I do that? And when I found that I just gave myself freely with all my energy and all my love and meditated and asked Master for help to float through me, then I found, whoa, something really cool is happening here. And I could see it, like instantly with the children. So I'll tell you an example of that is one day in my classroom, I was with the boys and things were pretty okay day. We've been working a lot on, just to put you in that realm of awareness of others. I mean, really, there's something that exists beyond me. So it's really right there. Like, I bumped into him and, oh, it might have hurt him. You know, just very basic awareness and skills to be a good friend. So we had just kind of a mediocre day. The energy was a little bit grating. And recess happened, and I saw, okay, recess is going a little bit rough. We had somebody get hurt. And I walked back into the classroom after I rang the bell, and I thought, I really don't want to do this next thing. And it just didn't seem right. So I said, Master, you've got to give me something else, because that's not going to work right now. Please give me something. Please give me something. And I just tried to raise my energy and receive what might come. And all of a sudden, one idea. Go for a walk. Okay. Come on, boys. Don't put your shoes on. We're going for a walk. Then I'm thinking in my heart, okay. Oh, and I decided to take them to a walk pretty, like by the expanding light. And we got there and something amazing happened. The boys' energy completely changed, and on the way back, we had this beautiful moment where friends were made, where one boy was able to express something that really bothered him to another boy, and that boy was able to receive it, and it has changed the entire year. And so that is just one example of the beauty of teaching for me, and how I feel inspired. And anyway, I just encourage you all to find out more about our schools, and I encourage you all to support our schools, and really, most importantly, to view every soul, no matter where they're coming from, as a soul that is part of God, a part of you. So thank you very much.
Premi?
Premi?
Did you grab your sheet too? Thank you, Premi. When she mentioned that she had boys after she sang the song, which she did very good, by the way, Premi. It was beautiful singing. When she mentioned she has boys, she has a classic voice. As she mentioned, she has two girls, I think 7 and 9. Is that correct, Premi?
9 and 10.
9 and 10. And it's lovely Premi and I live in China together. It's wonderful to see the family aspect. I've never lived with another family oriented towards living this life and this path. And very hard worker, always putting her kids first, deep disciple. And it's just inspiring to hear her talk about education for life, because I got a chance to join. She is having people from the community come and do story time and tea time at her classroom. It's a wonderful thing if you get a chance to do that. It's very inspiring. And I'm glad she spoke about Education for Life, because I have been reading that book and just about finished. Comrade had once described it to me when I told him I was really interested in reading it. He was like, yeah, it's like the Bhagavad Gita put in the most practical and concise terms you can imagine. And I was surprised to find that was actually surprisingly good. So, thank you, Premi. Our next speaker is Sterling G. He's been here for about 4 years. He serves primarily at meditationbench.com, trademark. And the quote, so there's a little story behind me for the quote, is there was a satsang, I suppose, and he asked, what is life like for new disciples? Is that what's it like to be a new disciple? What is the path like for a new disciple? And Swami said, but you are not new disciples, talking to the group of us, the youngsters that had just come. And he was going on, and one of the quotes that stuck in Sterling's mind and inspired him was, life is like riding a motorcycle. There's the first year when you're getting started, there's the second year you start to go a little further, third year, fourth year, and finally you hit the fifth year and you can not necessarily coast, but it's, as Master once put it, effortlessly liberating. So.
All right. So I'm talking about speaking with your heart, and the past speakers have been really good to me because they said anything that I wanted to say. But I'll start with a metaphysical meditation. So close your eyes. Divine Mother, with the language of my soul, I demand realization of thy presence. Thou art the essence of everything. Make me see thee in every fiber of my being, in every wisp of thought. Awaken my heart. So, when I came to Ananda, I got to experience something new for the first time in a long time, and I never really understood it. Speaking from your heart to me was like the epic speech that a coach gives during the halftime to players, and it really, to me, it was like, oh great, you give a speech, and that's it. And recently I heard Ananta speak at Sunday service 2 Sundays ago, and it was, as Radhika said, a lot of times you don't quite remember what it's about, but the feeling that you get from it is what you take home. And so I got from his talk this his heart. You could tell from the way he spoke that was his passion, his dream, and the way he spoke. And when I was younger, I couldn't really understand how to speak to other people without having emotions. Most of the time we aren't really speaking from our heart. We're speaking from likes and dislikes, which cause emotions, and so. But this past week, I've been really trying to not speak with just emotion, but to, speak from my heart. And I realized that it's usually not, you can watch how you say things and how you, your tone of your voice and all that stuff. But it was really, the most important thing is to just feel that love for that person or for the people that you're talking to. And I realized, it's not what you're saying or how even you're saying it, but the feeling that you have while you're saying it. I could give an example. I get to work with some pretty amazing kids, well, they're actually not kids, they're teenagers, and they remind me of that all the time. And, and when I was a teenager, I wasn't very in touch with anything. But with these teenagers, they're very in touch with their surroundings. And I was talking to one of the boys while we were walking after school, and he was just telling me about his ambitions in life. And it just made me realize, like, talking from your heart comes from intuition. How you perceive the other person and what they want to hear. So he was talking about how he, all these aspects that he wanted to enhance. And you could tell from the way he was talking, like, this was really, really what he was trying to convey in school. And I could feel, like, there wasn't very much emotion, because it was, there was no, like, in school, yeah, it was amazing, it was very calm. And speaking from your heart, I realized, is the calmness that comes. Like right now, I'm trying to speak through my heart, but I'm also agitated because I'm in front of a bunch of people. So, which is really, I'm being really honest with myself. And to me, after hearing Ananta speak and thinking about this, and just trying to do it, like literally, before I start talking to someone, to feel where they're coming from and try to express that sense of appreciation and calmness. And even though it's like, sometimes you see like your best friend and you haven't seen him in a long time. And I do this with Brian McSweeney. I see him, I just jump on him basically, and which isn't coming from calmness or intuition, because he may be in a totally different place. But next time, Brian, I know you're going to be watching this. Next time I'll try to come from calmness. That time with Ananda, I also got from him the incredible ability to tune into someone. I mean, I asked him in front of like 80, 90 people, what kind of advice can you give to a bunch of devotees that are new? And he just instantly came back with, I'm a devotee. What do you think? He came back and was like, what are you thinking? And then he went even further and gave me a motorcycle analogy. I came back just kind of scratching my neck. I came out of left field. I don't even think he knew that I liked motorcycles. But it was just amazing to hear him talk about something that he really didn't care about, motorcycles. Ananda didn't care about motorcycles that much. I mean, he had one. But the ability to just tune in with me on my level, that's talking from your heart to just express that. I am really excited to be here right now, and what Radhika was saying, all those wonderful ideas of planning and practicing. And Hannah actually, Annapurna, had suggested to me that I practice. And I said, I'm not going to practice. And now I'm biting my tongue. Because, I don't really have much else to say. Except for, it's great to experiment with you guys, all these teachings, and it's great to. So.
Radhika for inspiring that. So our next speaker is married to our last speaker. She's been having a name transplant recently. She has been at Ananda for almost 3 years. She also serves at meditationbench.com. She serves the Christian primarily, Annapurna.
Alright, so I'm really wishing now that I had written down some of the things because I feel like I'm forgetting everything already, but hopefully I remember some of the things I want to say. So, I wanted to talk a little bit about my life. When I first came to Ananda, there was a sudden and dramatic shift in me. It was like the day before I came to Ananda, I was one person with one set of habits and experiences, and the day I arrived at Ananda, everything was different. Not everything, but there was a lot of things just shifted all at once in me. I felt like in the beginning there was a lot of grace and, things that I saw, bad habits that I had that I saw as a pretty big part of who I was as a person, just effortlessly melted away. And I was like, wow, this is great. If it keeps going on like this, I mean, I was one of those people who I think, like a lot of others, in the first couple of months that I was here, I thought, well, okay, if I've gotten this far so far, in like a year or two, maybe 3, I'll have the body, It's really not going to take very long. So I just gotta, keep doing a little effort and I'm there. But I think after some time, that initial sort of honeymoon phase of, the guru gives so much grace in the beginning to get us hooked, and then sometimes it kind of, comes back a little bit to reality, and we see, oh wow, okay, I have, more things are coming up that I have to work on. Maybe some of the things that I thought were effortlessly melted away are still in there somehow. And still need work to be worked on. So, sorry, I just want to okay, so, alright, well, one of the things was, I was, okay, so I was thinking about, like, Kundalini and how, Kundalini is both the energy that goes outward and ties us into delusion, ties us to the world, and it's the root and it's what we bring up into our higher chakras to become more spiritually enlightened. So my thought with that is a lot of times I think on the spiritual path there's some kind of pressure, whether it's internal or external or both, to be perfect. It's like we have such amazing examples and we have such a high goal that I think it can be really hard for us to see parts of ourselves that aren't perfect. And that might be really not perfect. Wow, that's like a really big problem. And, we don't want to show that to people. We're afraid to see it in ourselves. And we just kind of started to realize recently that actually gives it a lot more power and energy by kind of removing yourself from these issues you might have that aren't real. And Rachel always, we talk a lot, and she talks about very theoretical things to me. And she would always talk about all the different terms and the shadow self and how you have to embrace your shadow self. I was just I have no idea what that means. what could that possibly mean? And so yeah, I just kind of started to realize recently that it's basically the idea of suppression versus transcendence. And when we have, all of us have these parts of ourselves, if we're new devotees, it might be big, scary parts, and if we've been meditating for 40 years, it might just be little trickles of scary parts. But that we have to basically decide how to deal with. And the Kali Yuga way, which we're just coming out of, is suppression. And is to say, okay, that's not me, I'm this person completely right now, and that's it. Just don't pay any attention to all those bad parts, and we'll just be good. But it doesn't always work like that. And so I've been experimenting with finding that relationship with the less desirable. Is there a time I think? I don't know. Okay. Oh yeah, so making that relationship with those parts of ourselves so that we can sort of not embrace okay, I love this part of myself, I'm going to go do all these bad things that this part of me wants to do, but just embrace it as a reality and keep it as a part of our lives so that we can shine the light on it, not just putting it away, but letting it really be out, at least in our own consciousness, so that it can be transformed. And Master and Swamiji actually really often encourage people's negative traits so that they could be transcended. I was listening to talk by Asha today, and she was telling a story about some, Master, a disciple of Master, was giving kind of some weird ideas, and he started thinking, Master is really getting interested. He started having all this distance for Master. And so, as a reaction, Master said, he started acting really vain, and he would have this disciple in the room and he'd be getting ready for talk, and he'd be crimping his hair, looking in the mirror does this scarf look better like this or like this? And he'd be just paying so much attention to his physical appearance because he saw that, that guy was actually very vain, and by bringing out those qualities, they could be brought to light and they could be transformed. So, Whether the thing that Asha was saying in the talk was that someone came to Swami with his ideas about this new endeavor he wanted to take, and it was pretty obvious to everybody that it wasn't a good idea because it was that spiritual. So he came to Swami and said, here's what I want to do, and Swami said, no, that's not going to be good for you spiritually. And so this fellow came out of the meeting and said, isn't it great that Swami agreed with me and he thinks I should do that? So the point is, even if, we'll get into all the trouble ourselves, no matter if everyone tells us not to, so we don't have to go looking for the trouble, but just have to really keep trying to embrace it and embrace higher realities in ourselves without suppressing it. Thank you for your
Go home and embrace your shadow self. For Rachel's suggestion. That's a really beautiful point, because being new on the path, or maybe not as Swami says, but being new on the path, it takes a lot of humility to embrace our flaws and really look at them in the face. And we saw a tremendous show of courage from Kate when she stood up here and talked about her depression. Thank you very much. Our last speaker has been at Ananda, living here for a whopping 7 years. Whopping for us Ananda for the future folk. He manages Ananda Web Service, and he owns a dairy. Indra. Oh, I'm going to show you a quote, because it's a great quote. You can stand up here with me. That's good. Friendship is God shining through the eyes of your loved ones, calling you home to drink his nectar of all selfish, dissolving unity. Friendship is God's trumpet call, bidding the soul to destroy the partitions that separate it from other souls and from him. True friendship unites two souls so completely that they reflect the unity of the Spirit.
Thank you all for coming out tonight and supporting us. It's nice to have such a big group. And if it wasn't clear, my topic this evening is going to be on friendship, and what Master calls true friendship and spiritual friendship. And recently I was reading Master's book on spiritual relationships, and I've read it many times just because it's such a profound book. You can pick it up and get something different from it every time. But what really has always stood out to me is the emphasis in that book on friendship. And as you think of it, you know, it's natural that any relationship, especially a spiritual one, should have its basis in friendship. But to really reflect on what are the qualities of friendship was something that I really wanted to explore. And I thought, well, what better way to explore that than to talk about it? So what is friendship? Master says that true friendship lies in seeking soul progress together. Your friends, he says, constitute the most valuable possessions you can have. When I first read that, I was pretty blown away by it. I mean, I have a lot of possessions in my life, but rarely do I see my friends as, you know, the most valuable of those. And it really made me look at, you know, what am I valuing in my life, and not only that, but what attention am I giving to the friends that are currently in my life. I think it's very easy to take friends for granted, but how important they are, especially on the spiritual path, and especially within a spiritual community like this, where friendship is what helps to keep us going and to keep us inspired. If you look up friendship in the dictionary, you'll see that it says it's a relationship of mutual affection between two or more individuals, which is interesting, and I think the spiritual path gives it a little bit of a spin, because we all know that true friendship and our own friendship begins with ourselves, and we're not able to extend friendship or love or any of these other qualities unless we've cultivated them in some way within ourselves. And so really true friendship, I think, exists within ourselves, starts with ourselves, starts with our relationship with God, and then from there it can be offered to the other people in our life. So with this, how do we be friends to those that are currently in our life? Master said that service is the keynote to friendship. And when he says things like this, it's so profound and such a small statement, but I always feel like he's kind of Mr. Miyagi. He's telling me to wax on and wax off. And it's like, okay, serve my friends. I get the motions of it, but what is kind of the deeper essence there? And that's really the beauty of this path, is that, you know, we have these qualities like service and meditating together, and we can actively engage in them, but really they take us so much deeper. And I think specifically what this service component does, and what I've recognized in serving my own friends, is that all of a sudden you begin to break down the borders of where my needs are and where my friends' needs are. All of a sudden, empathy comes in, and you start to recognize your friends' needs as your own needs. And so all of a sudden, this idea of, okay, I am this body, this ego, this identity, is just got a little bit bigger, and now includes those other individuals in my life. And slowly, through service, through kind of that self-offering, those borders of ego identification begin to break down a little bit. So ultimately, friendship is that doorway by which we can recognize our unity with all things. And I think that's why friendship is so beautiful, because it's that starting place. We get to work with somebody that we care about, and especially at Ananda, people who we've been, are sharing something so deep and powerful as a spiritual path and a guru. So. Master, I wanted to share a quote by Master. He says, "When perfect friendship exists, either between two hearts or within a group of hearts in a spiritual organization, such friendship perfects each individual." And really that's what we're doing here, is trying to perfect ourselves, and what a valuable resource we have is friendship to help us in that process. So what is true friendship? One thing that he emphasized, which really struck me, and I've really kind of been going over in my mind for a while now, is that true friendship is being mutually useful. And I really had to think about that one for a long time, because it's not something that we necessarily relate to, because when I first saw it, the first thing that came to mind is being used or using someone, which both have very negative connotations. So what is being mutually useful? And he also recommends it with, in partnership, is that a husband and wife should constantly try to be mutually useful to each other. And what does that look like? And for me, the perfect example of somebody who has been throughout their entire life mutually useful is Swami Ananda. And it's interesting to look at it in the context of being mutually useful, but essentially what it is all of the ways in which he made himself accessible, and not necessarily the specifics of how he made himself accessible, but just each of those things through his music, through his books, through learning all these different languages. He just opened the door to be able to reach more people with his vibration. So it wasn't about the specifics of what he was doing, whether he did this new song or wrote this new book. All of a sudden, where his focus might have reached this group of people if he knew one language and wrote a few books, all of a sudden he expanded to reach so many more people. And I think, in being mutually useful, we can kind of think of, okay, what are some things that I can learn that can help to reach a bigger group of people, essentially. I mean, that's why we're here, is to serve and to share our vibration. And again, it's not about the specifics, but it's just that we're actively trying to engage with the world in really whatever way they're able to receive it. It's about building those bridges so that we can connect with more people. So one other component that he talked about that was very inspiring to me and very applicable to our life here at Ananda is finding friends of past incarnations. And what he specifically said is, make every effort to rediscover your friends of past incarnations. Do not neglect them. Strengthen the friendship existing between you. Be on the lookout for them always. And for me, that was really poignant, just in how many divine friends we have. I mean, even in this room, I know every single one of you, and we have a history and a relationship together. But it's not so much on the physical plane, obviously. It's about cultivating that spiritual relationship. And I think it's, especially easy in this life where we don't have the past knowledge of all our past incarnations. But I think if we did, we would see how many lives we've all been together and how many times in all of those lives that we've touched each other's life. And I think with that recognition and that knowledge, I mean, there's no way that we couldn't fall in love with every single one of us. So I think just having faith in that process and really trying to cultivate those spiritual friendships. Master says that through these friendships, these spiritual friendships, God will come to you, serve you, inspire you, and guide you. So I think, we think, if you haven't been convinced yet of why I should have spiritual friends, it's really that vehicle for God to come and serve you. So how do we cultivate these divine friendships? Well, I think this is definitely one area of doing it, of coming together and sharing in satsang like this. Other areas are meditating together, serving each other, and like I was saying before, just really trying to be mutually useful. And as I was talking about before, through all of these activities, the borders of our ego identification of where I stop and where all my other friends begin becomes less and less. And through that process, we're eventually brought to the place where no borders exist at all. And as Master used to say, I'm in so many bodies right now, I just don't know which one is mine. So anyways, thank you all for your friendship.
Thank you, Indra. That was beautiful. So we've come to the end of our speakers. It's just so inspiring doing these events. We haven't had that many. The fact that it's happening around the world is also deeply inspiring and thrilling even. But just coming in month after month and seeing friends come up and share themselves in a way that you don't normally see, breaking out of their shells, expanding themselves in fresh ways, and just seeing people come from their heart. I mean, there's sometimes I see people and you think you know a person, and then you see them in a totally new light, and this is one of those places where you're just like, wow, never thought of you in that way. So thank you all for sharing. And I'd like to invite you all up for a blessing, and I'd like to ask the audience to please stand and offer them 3 ohms. So be sure to keep Premi in mind. She's back on the homestead with her daughters. So visualize these great souls in Master's light, infused with the presence of God, to take them on to their next step on this journey, inspiring one another, awakening to greater consciousness, higher realities, deeper feelings within themselves to share with all. Let's rub our hands together. So, to finish the night, we have Swamis Ananta and Maria, our guest ministers, come and share a few words. And we'll end with a prayer after that.
So, I'm going to go first, and then Maria will go second. First of all, I want to thank the speakers and all of you for being here tonight. We're here tonight because Master wanted Kriyananda to carry on his mission and speak for him. And so when Kriyananda was 22, he got the assignment to start to give services. That became his life assignment. Whether that's our life assignment as disciples or not, we're here tonight with Swamiji's blessings. And I want to tell the speakers and the other people, he's very pleased with you. He's very glad that you're taking it seriously, because we have to do it. We have 2 aspects in this. One, we are disciples, and secondly, we may be called upon to speak. In that, we have professional training. That's why we're here. That's why Ramesha went to the academy. But he's a disciple, and you put the 2 together, and that's what you're doing. And I'm very pleased with you, and on behalf of Swami. It's what we have to do. Savitri and I and Nalini and a whole bunch of old people, not Savitri, but old people like me. We used to do this with Shivani, And Shivani took charge for Swamiji to get us practice speaking. Doing drama that we didn't mention tonight is a good aspect. To just get comfortable with an ego-less operation of representing Master. That's what we're doing. I think you all did beautifully. All the technical things about speaking can be helpful. That's why we study them, that's why we repeat them, that's why we watch Swami. But in the last analysis, it's finding the way that you can get out of the way and let Master speak. And Sterling referred to that, and others, and in essence, Indra did too, because it is a friendship. We are Master's friends, students, disciples, chelas, yes, and therefore his message has to have human voice. It has to have a face and no fancy earrings. Notice I didn't wear my fancy earrings. But it's that process. So I think you did really well, and thank you, rest of the community, for coming and joining us, because we are trying to support each other in this, whatever our task is, and it may not be to speak. Sister Gyanamata never spoke. She was the wisest of the wise. Rajasi spoke rarely, because it wasn't his karma. If it's your karma, and now Swami can't tell you, Savitri, go talk, or Ananta, go talk, but Jyotish and Devi will, and the situation will present itself. But I think you're doing really wonderfully. Practice makes perfect. Talk, talk, talk. Record it. This is probably too old for some of you, but the way that the rock and roll group, the Byrds, became great is their manager made them listen to their recordings over and over, and then you hear, oh, wow, I wish I didn't play that note. I wish, the phrasing, all those things. You just practice and practice and practice. And so you're doing really well, and always feel Swamiji's blessings on your work, and let Master speak through you. And when you've been doing this for 40 years, you still, before you talk, Master, what do you want to say? And you have your little notes and you have your little thoughts, and then, Master, let's go. Let's do it, and it works. So thank you very much for your diligence, for taking it seriously. Always feel his blessings and his love and his smile, and Swamiji's too, because it was Swami's mission. In essence, it becomes ours. We are his children. We have the same karma. So to some extent, I don't say that hardly ever talks. She's smarter than all of us. So, it doesn't matter who you are. It's just what Master wants to do through you. If you open yourself, you'll be amazed. And I'm not amazed, because I know all of you, and you just did wonderfully. Thank you.
Okay, well, I wrote down a bunch of things that I'll never have time to talk about them, but it was just so much fun, really. And I remember, like Ananda said, our days doing this kind of thing way back when. And it was just such a beautiful experience on so many levels. So it's so great that you're doing it. And I did want to just say a few things about everybody. I loved Radhika's, where is she? Oh, there. I just loved your humor. Humor is harder for me sometimes. I really appreciated it. And boy, was I glad when Sunday dress became one thing. It was always after Sunday service, it was like, wow, where did you get that dress? So just eliminated all of that. And I just really appreciated your humor, while highlighting very specific things. And it's really, it's a great thing to use in public speaking. It just relaxes everybody. I think it was, Annapurna started and said she was going to tell us about her life, and she launches off into her life, and all of a sudden Kundalini comes up there, and I was just like, whoa. But you want that, because you want people to be relaxed. You want them to be with you, and we do talk about deep things and deep spiritual things and real things, and you can't just come on serious all of the time. And well, you certainly had me on that. I think that's a very useful you know, and helpful way to get people to listen. It needs to be personal, and it's also very deep, clearly. So, and Sterling, I really appreciated you starting with a prayer for all of us, but it's such an important part of the sharing that you do, because when we can just be in the prayer, when we can feel Yogananda, when we feel our guru, our, you know, those who inspire us, it just centers us in the heart. And when you can feel that energy there, clarity comes, the thoughts come, the inspiration comes. And I think it was Radhika who said, you know, to just let your ideas flow. But when you start it there with that prayer, with that inner focus, and really touch the consciousness of our masters, that's really the starting place. I mean, then you know what needs to be said, what needs to be shared, what doesn't. It's just extremely clarifying and helpful. Somehow in that context, well, you know, oftentimes Swami Kriyananda, after a class or something, people will come up and say, gosh, I really liked that talk, Swamiji. And he would say, well, what did you like? What did I say? What did I say? And then you were really on the hook. Were you listening, or was this just the all-conclusive, I really liked your talk, you know? And, but it wasn't because he spaced out or didn't remember, or, you know, just lacked clarity or any of that. It was just that he was so much an instrument of Yogananda, of his guru, of a greater consciousness, and unidentified with it on a personal level. And Yogananda would oftentimes say, in speaking to somebody or lecturing, he would never feel his body below the heart chakra. It just didn't matter, didn't exist. He was just an instrument for spirit. And so I think we can get it more into that flow and really be an instrument when we start off trying to touch and feel that consciousness. And the importance of practicing. It is important to practice, and don't, you know, you feel so stupid and silly. You know, either you are giving your little talk or something in your room by yourself or whatever, but, you know, when you're trying to get the hang of it. But it's not silly or stupid. In fact, if you just, before you even write anything down, just launch off into what it is you're talking about. It's amazing how clarifying it is, because there you are. You're by yourself. You're not going to make an idiot out of yourself. But just see what comes out. See what comes out right from your, you know, your attunement and your thought of the masters. And because oftentimes that's going to be the one. That's going to be the starting place. Is just right where you land from the beginning. So don't think it's silly or a waste of time or somehow demeans you that you have to practice your talk, because it's just very clarifying. And as Indra said, it, you know, you get to focus all this time and energy on it, and you get to study the talk, and you get to the subject and reflect on what that means to you. Indra's talk was just very organized and thoughtful and reflective, and you could see and feel that he spent time with it. And I think Radhika was saying that in the beginning. I mean, no more than what you need to talk about, but to really be with it. It's really about being with it. You know, when Swami Kriyananda first came to Master, Yogananda asked Swamiji, how did you like my book, The Autobiography of a Yogi? And Swami Kriyananda said, I loved it. And Yogananda said, that's because my vibrations are in it. It wasn't, the autobiography, that's a big book. That's a lot of words. It's a lot of profound and deep teaching, which Yogananda expressed really clearly, really, beautifully. But he emphasized vibration. Yogananda said that it's not words, profound words that are going to lead us to emancipation. It's the effort that we put into our meditation, to going deep, being in that vibration. And I have to say, not to edit Yogananda in any way, but listening to Premi, just the way we live our lives. You know, it was a beautiful talk that she gave on education for life, what her day is like, and boy, it just makes you, I don't know if it made you feel that, but I was like, education for life, yes, yes, you know, I want to know more, I want to go watch Premi in class or something. I mean, just, you know, very profound, because as with all of you, just very real and very from the heart. And I just wanted to share one last thing. When I can't remember exactly the point at which I started doing this, but way back when, Swami Ananda did give all the Sunday services, all the talks, all the classes, you know, all of this. And at some point, it wasn't because I knew I was going to speak. I never knew I was going to have to do that. I never knew I was going to be a minister. I didn't want to be a minister. I mean, I did not want to be one. It just never came up. I even thought about it. So it wasn't any of those things, but at some point along the way, I decided for myself that I was going to try to tune in, for example, and at Sunday service, before Sunday service, tune in to what Swamiji was going to talk about. And it was just a wonderful exercise in attunement and trying to increase my receptivity, but also very clarifying, because I had to really go into, you know, look at the reading and go into it and feel, try to feel and tune into its essence. And so I just wanted to offer that as a, you know, as an opportunity that exists, you know, even when you, if you do set themes in this class, I mean, not to compete with the person talking, but if you know the theme yourself, you know, what would you talk about? And it's not like you want to compare or be distracted during the talk, but tune into other speakers, tune into what they're drawing as essence, because we are all connected that way, but also the essence is the core of whatever the teaching is or the subject is. It always brings us back to the center. So if we're practicing trying to get to the center or the heart of that theme, I mean, it can be talked about in as many ways as there are people in this room and beyond. So it's infinite. It doesn't have to be one way, but the essence will be there. The core teaching will be there. And it's just a really good exercise, either for your own depth and understanding of the teachings, just trying to get a hold on them, or if you ever do have the opportunity to speak and share in that way, which you will. So, okay.